Good afternoon, everybody. Tony Margatelli here, Chairman at ICPA, and welcome to my In Practice blog. The agent strategy with HMRC is interesting. Very little being put out about it at all, frankly, and yet it's going to affect probably 90% of AccountingWEB members, and certainly every accountant in practice, and yet the amount of output's basically negligible. But the whole thing started about 2011. We had the government corresponding with and liaising with the wonderfully named, I've got to read it here, JTASSG. That's the Joint Tax Agency Strategy Steering Group, made up of the usual suspects. And when we say the usual suspects, interestingly, they included the accountants in Ireland. Interesting. But anyway, this was being carried on through 2011, 2012. The ICPA, we were monitoring what was going on there through 2012 and getting involved and commenting and writing. It resulted in early 2013, January, I think, with the formation of the Agent Strategy Group, of which other institutes and organisations were brought in to add a little bit more than just dealing with the usual suspects at the JTASSG. That's been carrying on now through to where we are now. Huge amount of change, lots of things going on. Bless them, we've got to remember here the revenue are in the hands of the techies, and Lord knows we all know what that means, don't we? So they've been subject to constant amount of change, I think most of which has come technical rather than to do with issues from HMRC directly themselves. But we're at the stage where they're talking about in 2014 more beta testing and all the rest of it. We have this wonderful new system called Agile, which means basically they test it as it goes along. I think that's it in a nutshell, and as they find things going right or wrong, they release it or they fix it and release it, and that's the way that we're at. Where we are at the moment is we still are all going to have to re-register accountants, but we're no longer registering with the UAR, Unique Accountants Reference. It's all to be done with the IDA. So there's a huge amount going on. And what HMRC are putting out is that as it stands at the moment, every accountant seems to think that the revenue know all about them and all their clients, etc., etc. This is obviously palpably not the case. We have the situation where HMRC have a reasonable guess who your SA clients are and who your corporation tax clients are. I'm using the word advisedly, reasonable. But they're not too certain about VAT clients or payroll clients. So the first thing that the revenue are saying, look, we need to get decent data into the new system. So what they're saying to all of us is, can you try and make sure that the data that's held on the gateway is accurate and is correct, not just in are these clients your clients, etc., but also in things like addresses and national insurance and that sort of stuff. So try and clean up your client data. Of course, when I brought this up at the meetings and pointed out this was not a 5-minute exercise and that there were huge amounts of practices out there who hadn't cleaned up their data deliberately for many years on working on the basis that, you know, these clients are serial entrepreneurs, can come back, why should I have to keep getting 64 rates and reapplying? So they've left them on there. There's a huge amount of work to be undertaken, and I tried to mention compensation, but you can imagine what the response was. I was fighting all on my own, but there you go. But that's what they're saying we should be doing now. Also, they're saying keep your eyes open because they will be writing to us all, telling us what to do as and when they start unrolling different parts and bits and pieces. But that's the major thing, clean up your data, according to them. AOSS, it seems to me that this is the one part of our engagement with HMRC that they seem to think we can't wait for. It's our only reason for living, to get agent online self-service. I have tried to point out, and many colleagues have, that to certify that you're acting for an agent, you're the agent acting for a new client, should not happen instantly, shouldn't happen quickly, because there's a myriad of things to do, and it's frankly not that desperate. However, HMRC are hanging an awful lot of this, of their new strategy on this agent online self-service. Why? Possibly because they want to get rid of all those poor people working up in the CAA team up, and get rid of paper 64/8. Obviously that's going to go. Agent online self-service. This is whereby an agent will be able to state that a taxpayer is their client, do it online and get access directly straight away without needs of PIN numbers, etc., going backwards and forwards. It was at one time thought to be the purview of people within professional money laundering bodies, etc. It now seems to be all tied in with IDA, and that's what it's about. It's basically the agent online self-service is supposedly going to be coming in, and supposedly beta testing some of it this spring or summer, but it's all bound up with IDA, and as they're not sure about the IDA delivery, so we're getting the knock-on effect of we're not 100% certain about the AOSS delivery because it's dependent on IDA. That's as at today, but we've got another meeting in a few weeks and they may well change it then. IDA is a strange thing. It's identity assurance, and they've got IDA from identity assurance. Again, the government are obviously massively concerned with cyber attacks on the system, cyber crime. They see IDA as, I suppose the term I would use would be be-all and end-all, but I know it's not the be-all and end-all, but they see it as a very vital part of combating cyber crime. Here they're about to announce a system whereby someone who gets registered as an agent can actually say, this person is my client. Armed with that, if they're of a mind to, they can perpetrate all manner of crime. So they're very concerned about cybercrime. They see IDA as their bulwark against this. What's going to end up happening is all accountants are going to have to establish an individual identity assurance with some providers. Last time I looked, they said there was about 6 or 7 providers out there. So presumably we're going to have to pay money to get this. But remember, this hasn't been put out yet, so it's all a little bit up in the air. But what we're talking about here is that we all have to register to gain our identity assurance, to gain this footprint. It's almost like a cyber identity card. Now, we know the Furore identity cards came up with in the past. Be interesting to see what happens about this cyber identity card. But armed with our identity assurance, the revenue believe that they will feel a lot happier when one machine talks to another that they are actually dealing with whom they say they should be dealing with. The problems with IDA is that it's not just to do with HMRC, it's not just to do with the Inland Revenue, it's across the board with the government. It's virtually everything the government are hanging on about part of their digital revolution, or digital by default, whatever they care to call it. And so IDA is a focal part of that. And we're going to be in a situation where the individuals will be ahead of the agents. Individual assurance will be brought in first. So individuals will be ahead of agents. So we're not certain at the moment, as our accountants actually able to go in with one identity assurance and my staff carry on doing the work, or all the staff's got to have their own individual identity assurance. I don't think that's going to be the case. We're going to have an account maintenance system, but that's still being worked on as we speak, and we're not sure what that's involving either. But that's supposed to be enabling us to manage our business much better. It's not just AOSS, it's everything to do with this agent strategy. It's going to be everything to do with individual identity assurance. It's going to be everything to do with transacting digitally with HMRC, and how we as agents and accountants, accountancy practices and firms are going to be able to do that. As I said, very little has been done about this, very little has been put out everywhere about it. Well, I know we keep banging on about it, but I do sometimes think we're a voice alone here. But people must start to get involved. They should be writing to issues, right into AccountingWEB and say, you know, get us more information. Why is it taking so long? Why is it that, you know, everything is, oh, we're beta testing this, but we haven't got cast iron? What is going to happen? How are we going to manage our practices? Are we going to be, will we be hindered by the fact that our clients will be able to digitally go online, do something, and we won't know about it? There's lots of these questions that need to be answered, and as I say, you've got to feel for HMRC in this, because they're just part of the whole government initiative, and the whole government initiative is digital by default. And it could be just me, but I do get the distinct feeling that the HMRC are like right up the front of it all, and possibly all other government departments are going to see how well it goes. But that's the reality. We're going to have this identity assurance footprint, but I'm not so sure. There's not been enough put out about that. Look at the furore, as I say, about ID cards. Get involved. People can write to us, write to AccountingWEB with their views, get in touch with their organisation, get in touch with the ICPA. Let's start getting the revenue knowing that we know what's going on.